What is up, my friends? It is John Smoltz Day here on Flippin' Bats, and it is the first John Smoltz Day of October. We're getting playoff baseball. We've had some incredible wild card round games, and we're going to talk to them about all of those that have happened. Some of the overmanaging that I think is happening, whether it be from Aaron Boone in that Red Sox Yankees series with that Fried versus Crochet game. Should he have handled that differently? The Cubs starting Kittredge over Imanaga. Going to talk to John Smoltz about some of the overmanaging we see in October, why we see it, and if he thinks it's the right way to go about things. Also, what has surprised him the most from the wild card games that we've seen. We're recording on Thursday, so we have not yet seen the game threes. So, from the first couple games that have happened in each series, what has surprised him the most? Dodgers Phillies series. We know that's coming. Two heavyweight bouts coming. Can't wait for that series. Going to talk to him about his thoughts there, what he thinks might happen, and Roki Sasaki being in the bullpen. What a change up from April when he was not pitching well and emotional in the dugout, and now he's closing out series in the playoffs. Who saw that coming? So I'm excited to have this conversation with John Smoltz because he's passionate about big moments and letting pitchers have their moment. And sometimes that gets taken away in October, and he gets passionate about that here. So I'm excited for you all to hear it. So without further ado, let's welcome in now the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. All right, and I am pumped to be joined as we are every single week by the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. John, it is playoff time. We have made it through the regular season. We're here. We're recording on Thursday, and chaos has already been happening. This has been awesome.
It is. I mean, it's the greatest time of the year, mainly because the games are played at such a high level that you could never come close to a regular season game. And everybody knows that. That's what makes it so special. That's why you see guys do what they do, good and bad, because the pressure and the intensity and to move on is the goal for every team.
I think it was important for baseball. We've had this wild card round for, I think, 4 or so years now. And of the 16 series we've had, only two have ever gone to a game three. It
Yeah.
felt important to get a year where today we have three game threes coming. So two in the first
Yeah.
4 years and now three.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the one games, I've never been a fan of the one game. But to your point, the two games are going really quickly for a lot of those series. And a lot of reasons for that, based on who you have to exhaust, what you are when you get to that series, and the fact that they're not always going according to the home team. But when you're playing all the games there, you have to win 2 out of 3, and the pressure on that first game is huge. And teams that won the first game are going on to win the second. So now
Yeah.
we got 3 must-win games to move on, and I love it.
When you're watching these games, as you said, a lot of these managers are treating game one like it is the must-win game. And it's easy to sit back on a couch, right? And say, that's overmanaging, that's overmanaging. That shouldn't have been done. That's the easiest thing to do in the world. And I can acknowledge that. But there are things, in my opinion, that managers are doing to put players out of their comfort zone, maybe, which, the second the calendar turns October feels a little weird to me. I think Shota Imanaga is, maybe not his best year. Maybe Matthew Boyd had a great year. I think if you chalk it all up with the healthy guys they have, I think Shota Imanaga is the Cubs' best pitcher. Game two of the wild card series, they start Andrew Kittredge to avoid Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis for Imanaga, and they give up a run in the first inning, and then you bring in Imanaga. Aaron Boone, for instance, I think maybe pulled Max Fried a little early, didn't start Jazz Chisholm or Ben Rice. What are your thoughts just on the way the game is managed the second the calendar turns to October and away from the regular season?
Yeah, I've always said this is the biggest indicator of too much either way. And what I mean by that is the last impression in the week impacts a manager more than it should. Let's just say one of your star players went 0 for 15 to end the season. You might be more apt to not put him in a
Yeah.
situation in the postseason, or your pitcher's struggling down the stretch, but he's your marquee guy. I always felt that was the hardest thing managers had to balance. The bullpen's the hardest thing. So if a guy's struggling down the stretch, how do you put him in a leverage situation, even though in the regular season, that's all he did? And I think the same thing can be said for managing situational games that they would never manage in a regular season this way. So your point's well taken. And some managers, not all, balance that well, and some go to the extremes. And I think the extremes usually don't win. They just don't. Long term, they don't win. If you get outside of your norm and you not panic, but obsess over the little things, you're going to be more apt to make decisions that are not going to be well received or look good in the end. Yeah. And if the flip side happens, the same thing. Let's say you rely on your starter too much. You're going to have the narrative gets expanded adversely and positively way too big. The gap's too big. And you can make an argument that for Tarek Skubal, who dominated, and he went 7 2/3, I can see somebody, if he gave up a 2-out home run in the 8th, talk about what a bad managerial move that would be on arguably the best pitcher in baseball. So you see how it can work. It gets magnified way, way too much in the postseason.
Did you have a thought in that game, the Red Sox-Yankees game 1, Max Fried, Crochet, Boone pulls Fried after 102 pitches, whereas Alex Cora lets Garrett Crochet go back out for the 8th inning, already 100 pitches when he takes the mound and hands the ball straight to Chapman. The conversation after becomes, well, Max Fried taken out at 102. He was rolling, nobody on base. At least go batter to batter from there and try and see what the guy can get you. But he pulled him. Cora didn't. And that did end up being a difference in the game of Crochet handing the ball straight to Chapman, and they win that ball game. What did you think with that?
Yeah, so I watched it most until I got on the plane, and I missed exactly what you're saying. I got off the plane, I saw the score. But here's the thing I look back at. I say Boston had limited resources, so they're going to go with their stud. You can make an argument New York had better resources for a 3-game series than Boston. That's why we're in a game 3. We're going to see how it plays out. Boston had to use their bullpen heavy in game 2, so that allowed that horse they had to eat up those innings. So when you look collectively at individual decisions, you have to look long-term like, well, what are my resources in game 2? And how do I allocate those, knowing even if I lose game 1, I should be able to win the next 2 games if I have the leverage. And I think Boston emptied the tank a little bit in game 2. It didn't work out. And now they're going to have to face a team with more resources. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you execute, these decisions don't get scrutinized. I understand that we're dealing in an era where that conversation is easily discarded because pitchers aren't asked to, it's not even emptying the tank at 115. It's just like warning, warning, warning. And there's no reason for that warning light to go off because what we don't do in the postseason is let a guy have a moment. And when you fill a script of analytics and you do not let a guy have a moment, I get 162. Let me just say I get 162 analytically, 100%. I'll lay down my personal beliefs and what I think. I'll say analytically 162, you might have a case to make, but you have no case to make in a series where a guy can have a moment and you are not letting him have a moment because you're adhering to the 162 analytical model. That is my biggest problem about postseason, and those decisions don't get you fired because you don't deviate from your 162 model, if that makes sense.
Do you think that is part of the reason of why we're seeing those decisions? Because it's the easy decision to make for a manager to lean on. I made this over 162. I know this. It's not the move that will make everyone around me pissed off if something happens. So I'm just going to do what I've always done, and I'll be able to keep my job.
Yeah, I think there's some guys that balance it well, and there's some guys that don't deviate. And job security is a big reason for a lot of guys that are no longer in the game that would not adhere to it. And then there's guys that are still in the game that adhere to it, and you can maybe point the finger to that. But I know information can be great, but so much to the script and not letting your eyes. I think there's some guys who have been born out of the analytical, I'm not deviating, and have gained leverage and say, you know what, I'm making this decision, and so be it. And I think there's enough of those guys in the game that realize that winning and that trust in your eyes will go a long way in helping your team win a championship.
And I would argue those decisions being made and pushing against boundaries are the ones that can create ultimate job security going forward in your career and leave you remembered as a legend, as a manager, and making a tough decision in the moment. And you did it. You pushed the boundaries and you succeeded, and you went on to, win the ALCS or win the World Series. And those are the moments that don't create job to job security or year to year job security. Those are the things that make you remembered forever, and you have forever job security.
Yeah, my biggest thing, and again, I get accused of being anti-analytics like to a core, and that's not the case. People can believe that all they want, but I'm speaking to experiential things that I know that work. And look, when you get to the postseason, you cannot, in any circumstance, treat a 3-game series like a regular 3-game series in the regular season. You can't. We've already seen it. We've talked about it. Managers don't treat it that way. And if your algorithm doesn't allow you some wiggle room to do the things that we just talked about, guys having a moment. We could spend a whole show on guys that came out of a game in 4 2/3 without giving up a hit, 5 innings. We could do a whole show on the kind of games that went awry, wrong, that nobody bared the brunt of it. Nobody had anything to do with other than we're not deviating. So we're going to see that moving forward. We're going to see games that we're going to talk about and go, Now, the caveat to that is managers do know things about players that never get out, and they do make decisions based on that information and will never
100%
talk about it. In fairness, whether a guy's hurting, whether a guy's what. So those things being neutral, we are not talking about isolating those instances. We're talking about an overall kind of like go by the book, and here's what it says, and we're not going to change.
Exactly. So, for instance, what you're saying, if people don't understand, is we can talk about Max Fried. Maybe he shouldn't have come out until our head turns red, but there's a very real chance that we would never know he came out and said, I'm done. My arm's done. I can't go back out.
Correct.
Yep. John, so far throughout this wild card series, if you're sitting back, you watch a bunch of the games, you haven't watched a ton, whatever you have watched, what would you say from a managerial decision to a way a series has gone? What has surprised you the most so far this wild card round?
I would say that I may be looking at the greatest collection of left-handed starters I think we've ever seen. Now that might be a little strong because I'm not going way back and really justifying that statement, but I just watched some of the most dominating left-handed pitching at the most important time for their team coming through. Now we'll see if they get to keep going on, but you throw Max Fried in there, you throw Blake Snell in there, you throw obviously Skubal and Crochet. Matthew Boyd didn't get a chance to go as long as he wanted, but there's some. I guess what I noticed is like, whoa, there's some frontline left-handed studs that are leading their team and trying to lead their team without resources that are fulfilling the rest of their roster, meaning they have to win those games. Like when Detroit plays, they have to win the Skubal game. When Boston plays, they have to win the Crochet game. And the Dodgers aren't in that category because they don't have to win the Snell, but it was a big game, right? So I think I'm seeing it was nice to see a guy go into the 8th inning, two left-handed studs go into the 8th inning, and they would have pushed Blake Snell even further if he didn't give up a couple runs. To see him go for the first time ever, go into the 7th inning. Think about that. As great of a pitcher as Blake Snell is, that's the first time ever in a postseason game he touched the 7th inning. And then even as late as Yamamoto getting, the opportunity to go late because of what Dodgers in the past, they would have been so heavy bullpen reliant, that wouldn't have happened. But now they're not so heavy bullpen reliant.
Yeah, I feel like they're being forced into this line of thinking of we need our starters to go deep into games. So it's almost forcing us to get like, we're going to see starting pitchers have their moment because the Dodgers don't have another choice.
That's exactly right. And we're going to see the same with left-handed pitching, by the way, in Philadelphia, some dynamically young, great left-handed arms. So all of a sudden, I'm looking around, I'm going, the lefties are showing up. It's not so much just the right-handed dominating guys. So that to me is very intriguing. And the philosophy that the Philadelphia Phillies have had is going to see how it plays out because they rely heavily on their starting pitching to do the brunt of the work.
Well, we know we're getting that series. It feels like the first like real true heavyweight bout we're getting in the playoffs. no discredit to the Yankees Red Sox series, but this is like two teams that could absolutely win the World Series. The two favorites to win the World Series, we have the Dodgers and the Philadelphia Phillies. What are just your overall thoughts on us getting that series?
Well, there's no flaws or there's no flukes in the league. They're so well represented. Doesn't matter what the other matchup is. That's going to be an epic series between Milwaukee, either the Cubs and the narrative of those managers, or San Diego. It's two different leagues where there's some questions big time in the American League about offense. Three teams that struggle to score, and there's nobody that struggles to score for the most part. Maybe you could say San Diego of late. Where's their offense been? But very well played matchups. I mean, the heavyweight between the Dodgers and Phillies is going to be great. I wish it was best of seven. Honestly, I wish both series were best of seven. And then in the American League, you just got kind of like you're looking towards the two high markets knocking each other out. One survives, and can they, with what they had to, the resources they had to extend, can they have enough to beat the Toronto Blue Jays, who have been sitting waiting to play? So Seattle, maybe it's their time, right? We've been talking about Seattle for the last 5 years. They're in a perfect scenario of who they're playing next, from their pitching to the team's offense they're going to face. So it's definitely National League heavy from the standpoint of the most balance is in the National League.
Yeah.
But somebody from the American League is going to come through there, and they're going to be poised and probably ready, if they take care of business in short work, to handle whoever the National League brings out of that bracket. I can make an argument that whoever wins the National League would be a heavy favorite over the American League. And that doesn't mean the American League team can't win it. But I can say that the National League power or the balance is definitely favored with the amount of teams that are in for the National.
Yeah, absolutely. John, we've talked about the Dodgers bullpen issues. They have Roki Sasaki over the last couple of weeks has come back from the minor leagues. They tried him in a relief role, and then in game two, playoff clinching scenario, they go to Roki Sasaki in the ninth inning. It was April, John, where you and I talked about Roki Sasaki, and he was seen in the dugout a bit emotional after a really bad outing. Didn't do very well throughout the season, was injured, got sent down to the minor leagues. In April, he was in the dugout emotional. And in October, he's on the mound in a playoff series clinching game with Dodger Stadium chanting his name on the mound. What a turnaround for this kid.
Yeah, I can honestly say he wasn't ready yet, right? And the injury didn't help either. But his fastball and command and the hitability of his fastball was not quite ready for 5, 6, 7 innings. Two straight, hitting up around. I mean, he's got it off. He's going to be fantastic. I still think, and I'll make that claim. But he just wasn't ready. And so in this role now, he doesn't have to think so much about getting through a lineup right now and figuring out where his fastball is or isn't. He can let it eat and get away with a little bit more out of this role. So I think it suits him well. I don't think this is long-term. I don't think that's where he's going to be long-term. But, yeah, quite a turnaround and quite a difference look. Now, I did say after last year's World Series that this bullpen is going to get beat up. I wish it wouldn't. I wish they wouldn't get hurt, but it was inevitable. What they had to do, how they had to do it, and this season has shown that. So whether it's Clayton Kershaw in the bullpen, Sasaki in the bullpen, limited guys they trust, that's the kind of thing we talked earlier that Dave Roberts is facing. These were studs. You line them up in the bullpen, these were studs that 100%. Are not having those kind of year. So you can't just say because they're studs and because they filled that role, it's an automatic decision that I'm going to go to him. He has to be creative, and he has to mix and match more than we ever thought he would.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think, one, this is not long-term for Roki. He's great in the bullpen this year or so far, but he's going to be a starting pitcher, and you still really believe in him.
Yeah, I just think his makeup and the personality of what he did for most of his young career is just going to play way too good in a starting role, because those guys that were hurt, they're going to come back. Their bullpen's going to be okay next year. Trust me. And I think their starting staff's going to be quite dynamic as well. When Clayton Kershaw hangs it up, which he's going to, it passes the baton on to the next guy. And the Dodgers aren't going to miss a beat, regardless of what happens this year.
John, always a lot of fun. What do you got on tap? I know you're about to get busy with playoffs. What do you got this week?
So I go to Toronto. Anxiously awaiting. I haven't seen Toronto this year. We haven't called a game. That city's going to be fantastic. It's going to remind me of 91, 92. And then I follow whoever wins all the way through to the World Series. I packed for about 24 days.
Woo. That's
going to be the challenge. I don't know exactly where I go, but I know the cities I'm going to, it's not going to be balmy. So I can at least know the clothes I'm going to have. I'm going to pretty much need warm clothes.
You're going to need warm clothes, and you're going to pack the sticks with you, and you're going to figure out where to play 18 anywhere you go.
Yeah, actually this year, for the first time, I'm not bringing my sticks.
What?
Yeah, I don't mind renting at this point, but it's just where I'm going and the uncertainty of where I'm going and the weather just kind of makes you feel like, how many opportunities may I have?
I get that. Absolutely. Well, John, we'll do it again next week. Thanks as always for joining, and have a safe travels.
All right. Thanks again.
All right. Just wanted to thank John Smoltz again for joining us as he does every single week. Always truly appreciate it. And we are recording on Tuesday morning ahead of the game threes. But this has been wild. It has been chaos. All of my thoughts from the first couple games and the entire series as a whole. I'm going to record again tonight for an episode that comes out on Friday, recapping all of the series that happened and everything that's to come with the ALDS and the NLDS. There has been so much that has happened and in the first round with, in my opinion, a good bit of overmanaging and some moves that should not have been made. The Detroit Tigers series has been absolute chaos to this point, and not a ton of runs, but the Tigers with runners in scoring position and the base running has been a nightmare. So I'm excited to see all these game threes. It's the first time we're getting 3 game threes in the history of this format. We've only had 2 of 16 in the past 4 years. This year we have 3 of 4 with the Dodgers already wrapping up their series over the Cincinnati Reds. So new episode coming out tomorrow, recapping everything and talking about the ALDS and NLDS rounds. Can't wait for that. Thanks again to John Smoltz for joining as he does every single week. I really, truly always appreciate it. But make sure you subscribe, you follow wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify. But watch on our YouTube channel. Flippin' Bats Pod is our YouTube channel. Leave a comment, like the video. All of that really does help, and I appreciate it. And I love hopping in the comments and talking to you guys and kind of continuing the conversation from the episode in the comments. And just love doing that with you guys. So, and check us out on all social media at Flippin' Bats Pod everywhere. But we are rolling, my friends. The wild card round has been, honestly, perfect. It's been incredible, and we'll talk about everything tomorrow as well and previewing the next few series. But enjoy the day of playoff baseball, and until next time, my friends, remember, find your bat and flip it.